Let me introduce you to Sarah and Matt. Sarah works in marketing, $62,000 a year. Matt S. in it, $71,000. Combined household income, $133,000. That puts them in the top 25% of American households. On paper, these two should be absolutely crushing it, maxing out their 401ks, building a fat emergency fund, taking real vacations. Not the kind where you spend the whole time checking your bank app. They should feel rich, or at least comfortable, or at the bare minimum, not terrified every time the check engine light comes on. Instead, Sarah and Matt have about 2 months of expenses saved up, and that is being generous. When their transmission started slipping last month, they put $1,400 on a credit card because there was nowhere else for it to come from. $133,000 a year, and a car repair sends them scrambling for plastic. They both work full-time, sometimes more than full-time. They're exhausted. They barely see each other during the week, except for those few zombified hours on the couch, where neither one has the energy to do anything but stare at a screen. And here is the part that should make you angry. They did everything right, every single thing. They got the degrees, they got the careers, they got married, combined their finances, bought a house in a decent school district. They followed the playbook to the letter. So why does it feel like they're slowly drowning in 3 feet of water? Why does a household earning more than 75% of America feel one bad month away from crisis? If you've ever looked at your combined income on a tax return and thought, we make too much to feel this broke, I need you to pay very close attention. Because what is happening to you isn't a budgeting problem. It isn't an avocado toast problem. It isn't a you need to cancel Netflix problem. It is a systemic trap that was designed to absorb every dollar you and your partner earn. And it has been tightening around American families for 50 years, and almost nobody talks about it. My name is Penny, and I spend way too much time thinking about why two-income households are often worse off. Worse off than single-income households from 50 years ago. If you're working alongside a partner, both of you grinding, and it still doesn't feel like enough, hit that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up if it helps you out. Because what I'm about to show you will fundamentally change how you see your household finances. Here is the thing. We've been sold this story that 2 incomes are better than 1. It seems mathematically obvious, right? If one person making $50,000 can support a family, 2 people making $50,000 each should have an extra $50,000 left over. Savings, investments, wealth building, that is just basic addition. A 5th grader could do that math. Except that is not what happened. Not even close. What actually happened is one of the biggest financial bait and switches in modern American history. 2 incomes entered the economy. And the economy said, oh, you have more money now. Cool. Let me just adjust all your prices upward so you end up exactly where you started. Except now, both of you have to work. That is like getting a raise and then finding out your landlord raised your rent by the exact same amount. You're running faster on the treadmill and going absolutely nowhere. I call it the prosperity mirage. This idea that doubling your household's paychecks doubles your financial security. It doesn't. It can actually destroy it. The term for this phenomenon is the 2-income trap, coined by Elizabeth Warren. Yes, that Elizabeth Warren, back in 2003, when she was still a Harvard bankruptcy law professor. She and her daughter Amelia Warren Tyagi studied over 2,000 families who had filed for bankruptcy, and what they found was genuinely shocking. Having 2 incomes didn't make families more financially secure. It made them more vulnerable, more fragile, more likely to go bankrupt, not less. Families with 2 working parents were actually filing for bankruptcy at higher rates than single-income families. Let that sink in for a second. Working twice as hard, bringing home 2 paychecks, doing everything the modern economy told you to do, and you end up more likely to lose everything. That is not a personal finance failure. That is a systemic trap, and you're probably standing right in the middle of it. Now you might be thinking, that was 2003. Things are different now. And yeah, they are different. They're worse. The The Federal Reserve found in 2019 that nearly 40% of American adults could cover a $400 emergency without borrowing or selling something. 40%. And many of those people are in dual income households, making solid money on paper. They're not broke because they don't earn enough. They're broke because their expenses consumed every dollar. Let me take you back to 1970 for a second, because the contrast is brutal. A median single income family could afford a median-priced home spending about 25% of their income on housing. They could afford healthcare, a car, food, and still have money left over for savings. They had financial margin, they had breathing room, and critically, they had a backup plan. If the breadwinner lost their job, the stay-at-home parent could enter the workforce. That second potential income was an insurance policy sitting in reserve. Fast forward to today, we've activated that insurance policy as the default operating mode. Both parents work in over 60% of married couples with children. The backup plan isn't a backup anymore. It is the plan, and there is nothing behind it. But here is where it gets really interesting. Look at what happened to costs while everyone celebrated bigger paychecks. Median home prices in 1970, adjusted for inflation, were around $200,000 in today's dollars. The median home price in 2023, over $400,000. Housing costs have literally doubled relative to inflation. Healthcare spending per household has increased by over 600% since 1970. Childcare now costs the average American family over $11,000 per year per child. In high cost of living areas, you are looking at $20,000 to $30,000 per child annually. And education costs for college have increased over 1,200% since 1980. Here is what really gets me. The expenses that consumed the second income weren't luxury expenses. They weren't boats and vacations and frivolous spending. They were housing and childcare and healthcare and education. The fixed costs of simply participating in the middle class. That is the prosperity mirage in action. You look at your combined income and see abundance, but the system already priced in your second paycheck before you ever earned it. You're not getting ahead with two incomes. You're running twice as fast to stay in the exact same place. That is like buying a bigger bucket to catch rainwater and discovering someone poked twice as many holes in the bottom. You feel like you should be overflowing. Instead, you're still empty, just more exhausted, carrying the heavier bucket. The two-income family does have double the financial security of the single-income family from 1970. They have less because their fixed costs expanded to consume both incomes, and they burned their backup plan just to keep up. Now you might be thinking, okay, Penny, but what am I supposed to do? I can't just have my partner quit their job. We need both incomes to survive. And I hear you. That is exactly the trap talking. You need both incomes to survive the lifestyle you built around both incomes. But here is the mindset shift that changes everything, and I'm calling it the one income foundation. You structure your fixed costs so they can be covered by one income alone. The second income then becomes entirely discretionary, savings, investments, debt payoff. But the critical difference is that you could survive without it. You'd have to cut back, sure, but you wouldn't lose the house. You wouldn't go bankrupt. You'd have the margin that modern dual income families have completely surrendered. Let me make this concrete, because vague advice is worthless. Say your household makes $130,000 combined, $75,000 and $55,000. Instead of taking on a mortgage that requires $100,000 or more in annual income to service, you take on a mortgage that can be comfortably covered by $60,000. Instead of having two car payments, you have one or none. You buy the house that one income can afford, and you bank the difference. That second income, or at least the majority of it, goes straight into building wealth. Emergency fund first, 3 to 6 months of expenses in cash. Then max out your retirement accounts. That is $23,000 per person in a 401k in 2024. Then, taxable investments. Every single dollar you invest this way is buying back something priceless. Optionality. The flexibility to have one partner step back if needed. to take a career risk, to handle a health crisis, to actually have a choice in how you live your life. If you do the math on this approach, it is staggering. Let us say you invest $3,000 a month from that second income instead of feeding it into an oversized mortgage. At a historical average return of roughly 8% annually, that is $540,000 in 10 years. Over $1.4 million in 20 years. That is not fantasy. That is just compound interest, doing what it does when you give it something to work with. Now I know what you're going to say, Penny, that requires sacrifice. That means driving past the nice houses we could technically qualify for. You're right. It means explaining to friends why you're not upgrading your lifestyle, even though you both got raises. It means resisting the social pressure to spend like a dual income family because you're building like a single income one. It means your coworker buys a $450,000 house and you buy a $280,000 house. And for a few years, it feels like you're falling behind. But here is what is actually happening. Your coworker is locking both incomes into a financial prison where neither partner can ever stop working. Not for a sick kid, not for a career change, not for anything. Meanwhile, you're quietly stacking investments that will eventually generate their own income. That is like building a third invisible employee who works for your family 24 hours a day and never calls in sick. Within 5 to 10 years of the one income foundation approach, something shifts. The investments start generating meaningful returns. Compounding takes over. And suddenly, you actually have what you thought dual incomes would give you in the first place. Genuine financial security. You're no longer 2 job losses away from crisis. You're building wealth instead of treading water. You can make decisions based on what is best for your family rather than what is necessary to keep the mortgage company calling. And here is the part that really matters. This isn't about one partner quitting. Both of you can keep working if you want to. The point isn't to go back to one income. The point is to have the option. The point is to stop operating at 100% capacity with zero reserves. Like a car, redlining in 6th gear on the highway with the oil light on. Everything works great until one thing goes wrong, and then everything goes wrong simultaneously. The families who actually thrive financially aren't the ones who earn the most. They're the ones who preserved their flexibility, who refused to let expenses expand to consume every dollar, who kept their backup plan in reserve instead of deploying it just to keep up with the Joneses. So let me ask you something, and I want you to sit with this before you answer. Who are you in this story? Because right now, you've got 2 versions of yourself running simultaneously. There is the version you present to the world. The one who posts the combined income on a mortgage application, top 25%, 6 figures, made it. And then there is the version who lies awake at 2 a.m. doing mental math, trying to figure out if you can afford to replace the tires and pay for summer camp in the same month. Those 2 people cannot coexist forever. One of them has to die. And I'm telling you right now, if you don't kill the first one on purpose, life is going to kill the second one by accident. Because here is what nobody wants to say out loud. The identity you built around being a successful dual income household is the very thing that is keeping you broke. You are not a high earner who is bad with money. You are a person living inside a financial structure designed to extract every dollar you make before you keep any of it. And you've been so busy performing the role of couple who makes good money that you never stopped to ask whether the math actually supports that performance. It doesn't. We just proved it doesn't. A $50,000 second income, netting $2,000 a year, $8 a workday, $1 an hour, and yet you're still showing up tomorrow morning to do it all over again because you've confused motion with progress, exhaustion with productivity, and income with wealth. Those are not the same things. They have never been the same things. Here is what really needs to happen, and I'm not going to sugarcoat it. You need to burn down the budget you built on 2 incomes and rebuild it from the ground up on one. Tonight, not next month, not after the holidays. Tonight, step 1, pull up every single fixed expense you have. Mortgage, car payments, insurance, subscriptions, all of it added up. Now compare that number to the lower of your two incomes. If your fixed costs exceed one income, you are standing on a trapdoor with no net underneath you. You need to know that number. You need to stare at it. Step 2. Identify the 3 largest expenses that exist only because both of you work. Childcare, the second car, the convenient spending you do because you're too exhausted to function like a human being. That is your leak. That is where the second income is disappearing. Not into wealth, not into freedom, into the cost of earning itself. It is like paying someone $48,000 a year to hand you back $2,000. You wouldn't hire that employee. So why are you living that equation? Step 3. Set a number that represents your one income foundation. Every dollar of fixed cost needs to fit under that ceiling. Everything above it from the second income goes into 3 buckets. In this order: 6 months of emergency savings, then maxed retirement accounts, then taxable investments. Every single dollar that lands in those buckets is buying you something no paycheck can. The right to choose. The right to say no. The right to walk away from a job that is grinding you into dust. Without your entire financial life collapsing overnight. And look, I know what you're thinking, Penny. We can't downsize. The kids are in their school. We have a life. I hear you. But that life is a cage you decorated so nicely you forgot it has bars. You didn't choose that lifestyle freely. You were herded into it by a system that prices everything based on 2 incomes and then acts surprised when you can't survive on one. Remember that couple from the beginning, $133,000 a year, top 25%, putting a car repair on a credit card. That is not a story about 2 people who failed. That is a story about 2 people who succeeded at everything they were told to do and still ended up financially fragile. Because the game was rigged before they ever sat down at the table. You are not building wealth with 2 incomes. You are renting a lifestyle that 2 incomes can barely afford. And rent builds nothing. The families who actually win this game are the ones who refuse to play it on the system's terms. They live on one income. They invest the other. They buy back their flexibility instead of spending it on a zip code. You can't earn your way out of a trap, but you can stop walking deeper into it, starting right now. If this changed how you see your household finances, hit that like button and subscribe. I'll see you in the next one.